This content is brought to you in part by Real Marketing, the only marketing firm recommended exclusively by the Institute. Real Marketing utilizes over 25 years of expertise, and their products are built and customized for you to dominate any neighborhood anywhere. Go to realmarketingforyou.com. That's realmarketing, the number 4, you.com. Also, look for past A State of Mind episodes with CEO David Collins as our guest. Okay, so welcome back, Barry Kirk. This is part 2 of our discussion about loyalty. So Barry, thank you for coming back. And why don't we talk a little bit about the 4, your model that I love, right? The 4 types of loyalty that are created. And remember, the real estate and selling real estate is one of the more interesting things about loyalty, because it's this intersection between the product is to the customer is, I want my house, that is the product. But really right. the real estate professional is the person who's providing a service. And so really engendering loyalty to create referrals is a little tricky. So let's talk a little bit about the 4 again.
Yeah, and I think, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate being back. I think it's such an important distinction, though, because if you are a real estate agent wanting to create loyalty, it's going to be around the service you provide. You're not creating loyalty to that house. You're creating loyalty to you as the person that helped me achieve my goals for home ownership. So it's so critical to be thinking about that. But there is a tendency, as we've discussed before, for when people think about, okay, all right, I get it. I'm supposed to create loyalty to myself as the person providing the professional service. So I've probably got loyal customers and I have customers who aren't loyal. And I've certainly found in the work that I've done in this area that that's a little too binary, thinking either customers are loyal or not loyal, that you can sort of drop them into 2 buckets. The reality is that people are a little more complex than that. Buyers are more complex than that. And they tend to actually exhibit multiple types of loyalty. So a simple model that I've used in my work to kind of help people understand this is that think about it in terms of there being at least 4 types of loyalty. The 2 more transactional types are what we call inertia loyalty. That's when I appear to be loyal to you or loyal to a brand, but I feel stuck. So maybe I just don't feel like I've got an option to go anywhere else, or it's too much trouble to go somewhere else. And you can kind of fool yourself to think inertially loyal customers are really loyal, but it might just be that they just haven't heard the right offer to move them some other place. The other kind of transactional loyalty that many of us do tend to engender with clients is mercenary loyalty. And that's exactly what it sounds like. It's when we pay people to be loyal. So that literally could be, like a point system, or it could be that you just give somebody a better deal or promise them a discount in exchange for their continued business. That can be pretty powerful, but here's the one trick with that. If you can give me a mercenary offer, so can somebody else. And it's pretty easy for them to just beat it slightly, and that person could be gone as your client. So what oftentimes I'm recommending is people think of, okay, those are okay types of loyalty to have. You better know which customers are thinking that way about you. But there are 2 relational types of loyalty that are much more powerful. The first one is experiential loyalty, loyalty to the experience. I sometimes call this one true loyalty. And what it means is that I'm not stuck with you and I'm not focused on you giving me a cheaper rate. What I'm focused on is the quality of the experience that you're giving me. How do you treat me? Do you understand me? Do you listen to me? Do you anticipate my needs? And if you can get in that space, you actually can be the premium priced agent in the market, because I'm willing to pay more for the higher quality experience. I don't have to worry about somebody undercutting me, because that's not why people are your customer. They're your client because of the improved experience. And then the final type of loyalty, that is the other relational type, is what I affectionately call cult loyalty, but sometimes we call it tribal or social loyalty. It's where the client feels connected to you at some sort of a values level. There's something about you and what you stand for, the way you do business, that they appreciate, and it connects to them and how they look at the world. And then they also connect to the people who are all your other clients. So they look at who your other clients are, your other customers, and they say, I see myself in those people, and therefore I know I've arrived at the right place. And, you're my agent, not only because you deliver a great experience, but because I think I fit into this group of people who've also made the same choice. We're very driven by that as humans, social proof of what other people do.
Yeah, that's so interesting. The one thing that I was thinking about as you were discussing this is, as a very frequent flyer. Now, I'm not like a ridiculous frequent flyer, but I frequently fly and have been on the planet a long time. So the airlines really did this first and did it, and still kind of do it best, don't they, with their loyalty programs? So where do you put in your 4 boxes, right? Where do you put a loyalty program?
Yes. So loyalty programs generally show up in that mercenary category. When we think of loyalty programs, we often go right to, oh, well, what do I have points? Do I earn miles? And what do I get? Do I get a discount? And what do I get is always in terms of like a reward or money off, that kind of thing. Most of the time when we think loyalty program, that's where we see it sitting. And so oftentimes one of the first things that I get asked when I'm working with the business is, do I need a loyalty program? And because I don't emphasize mercenary loyalty oftentimes in the work that I do, the answer to that question is almost always, I don't know. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But I do know what every business needs, which is a loyalty strategy. And maybe part of that strategy is a program, but really a strategy is what you have when you're doing relational loyalty, when you're thinking about the experience you're creating in the tribe you're building. That may never show up as a points program, as a miles program, or a benefits program, but it's still just as intentional. You're making conscious choices of the experience you create, who you created for, how you communicate with them, and the tribe you're trying to build.
If we just continue to talk about the example you started with in part 1, which was this disruptible industry that not a lot of us thought about, which was the yellow cab. Okay. You could argue that Uber started with a mercenary strategy, and they had one for quite some time, and kind of still do, right? And this idea of referral, and yet it got them very quickly to the place where they wanted to be, right?
Well, I think what you're actually getting at is a really important insight here, which is, I talk about these multiple types of loyalty, but the reality is you don't have to just pick one type and lean into that. You can actually have all 4 activated within the right customer group. So I would argue, yes, that especially early on, Uber was doing things that looked mercenary, particularly around referrals and giving you a benefit when you made a referral. But I would also say at the very same time, they were using experiential loyalty or true loyalty. They were saying the yellow cab experience is kind of awful, and we're going to fix all of the things that are broken about that. Like you called for a cab and then somebody pulls up, is that my cab? I have no idea if that's my cab. Well, they fixed that, in Uber, that that's your car that's pulling up.
Right.
You can track where the car is in a good time. So they were actually using both at the same time. So they had a little bit of a program, which was the referral piece that they paid for. But their loyalty strategy is, I'm going to create a better experience than my competitor and therefore end up beating them out. And that's really what I think you want to do in real estate, is look at, does that mean you should never offer some sort of a benefit that's financial, especially to win over a new customer, to bring somebody new into the fold? Absolutely. That sometimes is what's going to get somebody's attention. But if the idea is sustaining their business over time, I would absolutely want to get out of the business of offering, always cutting my rate, giving a discount, some financial benefit. I'd rather get in that space where I provide an optimal service, and that's why you keep coming back.
Right. Or something that differentiates you clearly.
Clearly. And if you think about it, going back to your example of the airlines, what's one of the benefits that airlines provides that is a better experience to their best customers? It's getting on board that plane first. But let's think about that for a second. What does that benefit cost the airline?
Not a thing.
Zero, right?
I mean, it actually made them better, right? Because
it did.
When you have that, it's like not this, cattle called aboard.
Exactly. And so that's one thing I often recommend is think about benefits that you can provide that are better experience that actually don't cost you anything. You're just deciding who to limit the benefit to. And that can be really powerful simply by saying, well, when you've been with me this long or you're buying at this level, then there's this benefit that I bring to you because you're a special client of mine. And you don't have to worry about, well, gosh, I don't want to give that to everybody. Don't give it to everybody. Give it to that special group of clientele that you really want to make sure that you're hanging on to. And that's why I think the experiential loyalty can be so powerful. It literally could cost you less, but also let you sit in that premium price space. It's kind of a win-win for everybody.
That's a great example and a great visual for folks. And so why are we really talking about this here, right? In the art of selling luxury real estate. The real reason is real estate is a professional service. Okay. Mm-hmm. And all professional services companies tell you that the hallmark or the lifeblood of their business is referrals. And so we set out at the beginning of our journey discussing this, Barry, with this idea of turning loyalty into referrals and that they are interconnected. And we're also experiencing, I'm an observer, I'm a shadow social scientist. I love watching people, not watching them in a mall, but watching their behaviors and how they change over time. And one of the key things that's happening right now, today, in 2022, beginning of 2022, is we have this inventory issue in real estate, and especially at the high end. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that created that was the surprise of two things. One, an existential event called a pandemic, right? The second one is that, and maybe causally, but the second one is there's an entire generation of people now who are big, who are now just deciding to get into the home market. Suddenly, they were tribal about not wanting a home, mm-hmm. and now they're tribal about wanting a home. And I want us to unpack that, the behaviors of that generation a little bit, because it really shows where agents should be thinking about the business that they're in, and really all of the entire profession known as real estate. So let me unpack that a little bit. So how do loyalty and referrals intersect in your mind as a loyalty marketing expert?
Well, I think we're talking about that upper age part of the millennial cohort, right? And I think we said that oftentimes referred to as the Henrys.
Yes.
Right.
I mean, the millennials and the Henrys are not the same, right? The Henrys, the high earners that are not rich yet, represents both they're both in the Gen Z and the millennials, they're really very important to the luxury real estate market. But generally speaking, right, this group that we know as the millennials and the Gen Zs behave very differently than the two generations really before them.
That's right. And I think the one specific differentiator is that while we're all used to social tools now, we're all using them. I resisted TikTok for a long time, but I've mastered that now.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, but all that came very, very second, third nature to those of us who are Gen Xers or boomers. But for the millennials and certainly for the generation coming behind them, they almost can't remember a time where they didn't have these tools, and particularly the younger millennials, right? They had them probably by the time they hit middle school. So the generation of millennials and the generation coming behind them, the major distinction between those buyers in the market and the buyers that are more accurately referred to as the Gen Xers and the boomers, is that they were raised on social media and social tools. Now, we all use social media, we all use those social tools, but they came very second, even probably arguably third nature to those of us not in those generations. We had to really learn and put effort into adapting. Whereas those younger generations, they always had them. So what does that mean? Yeah, they had those tools when they were younger. It means they learned much more quickly than we did how to find tribes and to find very niche tribes. Whereas our tribes might have been, the town we lived in, the university we went to, some sports team or a religion that we were part of. They found very, very micro tribes to belong to. So they, I think more than any other generation of buyers, are also very reliant on what they hear from the tribe. And this is where I think it becomes relevant to referrals. They are less trusting of institutions. They don't trust marketing at all. They're very good at tuning messages from institutions and marketers out. Very, very effective at doing that. And what they look for is what they hear from members of the tribe, even if members of the tribe are people they don't know personally. They'll put way more emphasis on something they hear from a person that they think is part of their niche tribe than they will on any institutional message. So when we're trying to build business, when you're trying to build clientele around a real estate practice, it's an imperative, if that's the group you want to go to, that you're understanding how to leverage referrals. That once you've made contact with some of them, you've provided an amazing service, it's going to be more powerful for them to talk to other potential customers of yours, frankly, than initially for you to talk to. And I got to say, that's probably really hard to hear. As a professional, you want to think, but I'm the compelling person.
Yeah.
I'm the one that people want to work with. But initially, they don't know that. And so it makes all the sense in the world that what you're trying to do is you're trying to optimize the tribal connections that generation has, the trust they put into each other in order to help them find you so that you can give them that amazing service.
It's a really lofty topic. I mean, I have to be honest, I think about the entire profession and the Institute members in particular, right? So you could call us a tribe.
Sure.
And one of the things that this tribe tries to do is network amongst ourselves, right? So that we can refer each other in that way. So one of the things, the other kind of events that's occurring at a higher scale right now is this relocation. Okay? We had a baby boomer generation for work. If you were in the upper echelon of the workforce and you were an executive with a Fortune 500 company, you just knew you were moving. And there was this whole relocation network and they were going to move you and all of that. Now we're in this other place where people are no longer doing that because they have to. They're doing that because they want to.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's now more important than ever for real estate professionals to have their own tribe amongst each other. And the Institute does do that, where through the Institute network, they can refer each other, right? Because the thing they have in common is this training and the designation we offer. So if we can shift the mindset that that's really a niche tribe, right? That's
100%. Absolutely.
So help us understand outside of the world of real estate. Give some examples of niche tribes.
Well, they can certainly be around a brand. There's not a ton of those, but they definitely exist. So like an easy one that's also very visible would be like Harley Davidson, right? So they've been very effective at building a tribe around that. And you literally can see those people. If you pass like a Harley Davidson dealership on a Saturday morning, more likely than not, you'll see a bunch of people just hanging out on their bikes in the parking lot before they go on a ride together, right? So you can create it around that. Also people in their interest areas. So it's really, I'm just going to give you a funny one, but they're a big group, but they definitely find each other. There is a certain set of millennials that never let go of Harry Potter. So they are young adults with kids, and they are still talking about which Harry Potter house they're in. And that might sound silly, but I think it's an important thing to understand about that generation. To them, it's not silly. It's no different to them than saying, my niche tribe is that I connect to a sports team. And that's the thing, I think something that we just have to understand about them is they find these things that connect them. It also could be a social movement. So it could be something going on in your city that people are really invested in the environment in your city and what's going on there, and being able to be somebody who can lean in and that and understand it. I'll give you another just quick example that I'm aware of from somebody that I'm connected to in real estate. I know they're here in St. Louis where I am. There's a movement of people who are interested in owning investment properties. So young couples that want to own investment properties, but they want to own investment properties that they then can sell as moderate income housing so that it's affordable for other people to buy. It's a value that they have that what they don't want to do is, yeah, exactly. And so it's part of they want to have it be a return for them, but they also want it to be that they're giving back to the community at the same time. Now, that person may also be somebody who's in the market for themselves for a luxury home, but they also see something else. And I think that's what you start to understand as you build your own tribe of customers, of clients, is what else are they connected into? I would definitely be talking to people about that. Understanding what is the niche group. I don't think I would just come out and say that.
Right. Sure.
What niche tribe are you part of? Listen, talk, and get to know them and start to understand. And probably over time, as you build out through referral, you'll start to see, well, many of your clients will start to have those same connections, and you'll get to understand that tribe better and how to connect into them.
And so just kind of in that whole vein of defining terms. So when you think about a tribe, they're informal or they're formal, and they're memberships or subscriptions, right? Like it can take on just about any form. Like I use the example of Netflix, right? So I don't know what we pay, $15 a month. And it's a super important part of our entertainment. But I don't really care if anyone else is using
That's right.
Netflix. It doesn't bother me, or, I mean, there's some word of mouth of, have you watched the show? But that's not really a tribe, right?
It's not. And I think the missing ingredient there is identity. So I don't see being a Netflix customer as part of my identity. But somebody may, but you and I, we don't. Whereas when it's a tribe, you start to say it's part of who I am. It's a piece of who I am. But that can happen with brands. There are a lot of people who, for instance, see their connection to Apple and Apple products as part of their identity. Like I don't use PCs, right? They have that identity. So that can happen with people that provide a service. I think where it ends up probably for somebody working in real estate, it's probably closer to the tribal sense that somebody has. I think you and I have talked about this before. I'm the person who says, "Oh, I've got a guy," or "I've got a person," right? And so part of their identity is, I want to be the person who's in the know. When you have a problem, I have somebody that I can tell you to go work with. And you want to be inside of that sort of personal identity as well. So I think it is really important to note you made earlier. This is not simple stuff. There is complexity to it, but you don't need to do a lot of it for it to start showing benefits to your business. You just have to get started, try things, and lean into it. You don't have to be, a cognitive psychologist to figure this out. You're just going to have to look at how do you connect as a person to things and say, how do I start to build that around my own business?
Right. And one of the things it's a foundational principle of the Institute's teaching, only we don't call it this, okay? But it's building that tribe of people for whom you refer business to, okay? So I want us to take our, kind of last segment time together here and really dig into building your tribe of referrals to and becoming the person that gets referred back, right?
Yeah.
So in this vein of, I've got a person, we're going to use different terminology. We're going to call you a connector. So one of the easiest ways in the business world to be remembered is being a connector, right? In the world of real estate, it's, I have a problem and can you solve it? And sometimes that problem looks like a plumber.
For sure.
Because we think in terms of house.
Yes.
But the other thing that the Institute teaches is how to think in terms of yet another professional service advisor. So when you look for the commonality amongst your client base, it's as you go up the chain of success from mass affluent, right? Which is really the Henrys, the affluent, they've gotten some wealth. Now, and then into high net worth, ultra high net worth individuals, they have their own tribes of people that they need. The foundational principle for the Institute and what we teach is make sure that you know those people. So an example would be, as we talk about referring, is I need a person who is a tax advisor. Right. So you're building out as a real estate professional, you're building out your professional network with people who you need to know that also need to know you. Okay. So foundational principle we teach. Now let's take it to the terminology that we've introduced, and I'll let you talk about how you take that foundation and really turn it into a tribe.
Yeah. So one thing I think is really important about that is when you establish with your customer that you're the person who has that network and I can hand you to another trusted advisor to solve other problems, is think of that in terms of loyalty. You're solving a problem of the moment for sure, right? I have some need and you're solving that. But what you're also telling me is if I hang around as your client, that I can continue to avail myself of this trusted network that you've built. right? So it's not just about solving their current problem. In solving their current problem, you are telling them, I am somebody who's worth continuing to be the person who advises you, who takes care of you, provides that service. So you're thinking of loyalty in the moment, but loyalty long-term as well.
And
so
that's key because we really were talking about in part one, how to move the thinking from the transaction known as the sale of a home,
right,
to the professional service as an advisor.
Yes. And then, of course, if you do that effectively, the next time I'm in the market for a home, guess who I'm going to come talk to, right? I'm going to come back to you because you've established this ongoing sort of value prop for me. So I will say one thing that is really important in loyalty is it's not about getting the sale today. That's important to us, but loyalty is saying I'm establishing the thread here that will carry forward so that you return to me and also you refer other people to me. I did want to definitely talk a bit about, how do you do referral effectively? So as you start to build your tribe, at some point, ideally, you're going to ask them, I would love it if you would refer people to me, or I would love it if you know somebody. And first of all, if you're not doing that, start doing that, right? That's just sort of key, like begin to do it. Don't hesitate. Don't be afraid that that's not something you should be asking people to do. People want to provide value to their network as well. And so if they can refer you. I think the mistake that people generally make is the first thing they think about when doing referral is, well, how do I get you to do it? All right, Diane, I want you to tell everybody how awesome I am. How do I get you to do it? And I've come up with some little bribe for you.
Right.
That's the mercenary loyalty kicking back in. My sense of like, well, I've got to pay you to do it. The problem with that is it can work okay, but frankly, if the person being referred, one thing, if they know that you're being paid in order to give the referral, it might make it seem a little less sincere, right? People don't always share that info, but if they do, I might wonder, like, is this really a great referral? So here's one tip I can suggest is think about what we would actually call a pro-social reward. Pro-social. Yeah, it's a term that psychologists use, but pro-social. And what that is I do provide a benefit for referral, but it's a benefit that when I say, if you refer somebody to me, you give that person this benefit. You give it to them, right? So if you think outside of real estate for a minute, it might just be like, hey, if you refer somebody to the business, when you refer them over, you can tell them the first thing they do is 50% off, but you're giving that benefit to them and you can choose who to give that to. In the real world example, that is Blue Apron, the meal kits that come to your house. Every week that you purchase Blue Apron, you earn a free week to give to other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so lots of people get introduced to Blue Apron through a free week, but not because Blue Apron gave them a free week, but somebody who was using it, who knows them, said, it came up in conversation, like, oh, I use Blue Apron. It's really cool. I love it. Do you want to try it? Like, I can get you a free week. So what happens in that exchange? The person who made the referral on your behalf gets to be seen as the person with inside knowledge that helps them. They look like they know something you don't know. They're able to hand a benefit off to their friend. So that increases their sense of, hey, I gave you something, and that's part of being friends. So you've sort of given them a reward, but it's a reward to hand to somebody else. And the person who was referred, even though they got a mercenary benefit, it doesn't feel so mercenary because it was handed to them by their friend, and then they come to you. Those rewards have been seen to be very, very effective. So just think about that. What little benefit might you be able to provide to a new client, but you only make that available through your existing network of customers when they bring somebody in? Not bribing them to do it by saying, I'm going to give you this benefit, and if you want to hand it to somebody else, so you kind of look cool in the know, or you're taking care of your friend, I'm going to make that available to you.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, and they can be just as or more powerful than the mercenary referral. Yeah.
Well, and what it brings to mind for me is, right now you put the word tribe in my head, and so I think about that again. If I'm thinking about it as a successful real estate professional, building my own tribe of people, right, that I'm going to refer business to, and they're going to refer business back to me. But then in this idea of building this tribe of clients, right, or current and future customers, or however we want to call that. But we're also building a like profile when we do that, aren't we?
We are, absolutely.
Yeah. And we want to make sure we do that intentionally. And this is the one This is kind of like the Diane hotspot, right? So when I think about that, I can't help it. My brain goes to be careful, right? Because you want to make sure that the people that you're offering that to are the people who, as customers, you want them to repeat, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So,
and people tend to in most cases, refer people who look like them, because we tend to, in our human behavior, hang with people that are similar to us, socioeconomically, demographically. So I agree with you. You want to be selective, because whatever kind of client I am, whatever you know about me, the person I hand the referral to probably will look pretty similar to me.
yeah.
And that might be good for the tribe, right? Tribes like people who look the same or are the same, but you just need to be really intentional about who you ask to do referral because of that.
And so in our last few minutes, what other ways do you think the professional services world known as real estate, right? Real estate professionals, how do you think they should look at referrals maybe differently in light of all of the things that we've painted for them?
It's probably, I think, one really important tip that I think I can hand on that as a way to execute on it. The trickiest part of referral is knowing when to ask for it. When you ask somebody, can you refer me to somebody else? The biggest mistake most people make is they do it almost as soon as you become their client. Hey, like, we're going to start working together. Could you? And I really love you refer to other people. And you know what that person's thinking, that customer's thinking is, I don't even know if this is going to work out yet. And you're already asking me to refer somebody else, right? So that's not a good time. Sometimes we think it's at the point of the transaction. So when the transaction is sort of completed, before we lose touch with each other, that might be the right moment in some cases. I'll tell you what the right moment is. And I'm going to tell you, you're going to have to find it for yourself, but here's how you'll find it. There's a really interesting bit of human psychology called the peak end rule. Peak end rule. And it says, in experiences, our brains are wired to remember two moments: the highlight of the moment, the highlight of the experience, and the very end of it. And ideally, those two things in a really well-designed experience come together: the highlight and the end, right? So practical world, if you go to Disney World, at the end of the night, they have a huge fireworks show. Yep. Hopefully that's the big memorable part. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Now they do a laser show too, but they also have fireworks. But there might have been a lot of stuff at Disney World that day that wasn't particularly memorable or enjoyable. It might have been, it's Florida, it's way too hot, and the kids were crying and all that stuff, right? But Disney knows you're going to remember leaving the park that night. So what you're trying to figure out is, where is your peak in your experience? And that's the moment to ask. And you kind of have to watch for it. You might have just had a really good day where the client just felt like, you really showed me, the properties you showed me today were spot on what I'm looking for. I don't know if I'm going to pick one, but I just appreciate how much you understand me. I would time they ask for referral sometime close to that moment. It might be at the moment they take possession of the home.
Right.
But that's what we're looking for, because that peak moment is where I'm feeling like the highest level of satisfaction. And I think the mistake would be, I have a system for asking referrals. I always ask it when I get this piece done. That is not how human behavior works. What you want to look for is, where's the moment where people feel ultimately like this is a great experience, they're being satisfied. And then I would time the request for referral. Maybe not at that exact moment. Like, I wouldn't say like, hey, you're feeling great, so this is what I'm going to ask you. But you want to get it close to that. And you can do that when you don't have a million clients. If you've got 100 or 200, you can ask that.
And do you recommend tying it to the experience? So, for example, we see it everywhere, right? We see everyone's very different way of asking, but they typically use the word referral, right?
Yeah.
Is there any way that you see a kind of a better way, like in the peak moment, saying, gosh, I hope you really enjoyed that. If you have some friends that, may want to have the same experience, let them know about me.
Yeah, right? I think you actually just hit on the right language there. Yeah. I would love it if, I think this has been great. I've appreciated, helping you. And I feel like you're telling me this worked out great. If you would feel comfortable sharing this experience with others, I would love for you to do that. And also, by the way, I'd be happy to give you this, benefit that you could share with somebody else. So if they wanted to give me a try, that they could do that. I wouldn't use the word referral. I agree with you. That's it's a marketing term.
It is. And why would the loyalty marketing guy?
Exactly. And it's important for us to have terms, but it doesn't mean, it's the same reason I'll tell customers like, hey, I really appreciate that you're part of segment 10 of my customer base. We don't, we don't use our internal
Right,
language
right.
with our customers. So I think you really hit on it there, which is you're asking somebody, the other language maybe you would use is, I've really enjoyed, our partnership here together. If there are other people that you think I could help,
Right.
to put it in those terms, I would love to have you share that information,
Yeah.
and also give them some easy mechanism to share that. That's where I'd say, don't hesitate to say, I'll send you something you could forward to them, or here's something you can hand to them. Because actually that helps people remember, like, oh yeah, I have that thing from Diane that she said I could share with somebody. Don't be shy about handing them something or sending them something that makes it easy to do it. But I agree with you. It's more about saying, can you find other people that I could help or share this kind of experience with?
Yeah.
I'd love to have you do that.
Well, this was incredibly insightful. And I really appreciate our time together, Barry. I think you're really a genius at this. And we're going to put some things that we discussed into the podcast notes so that people can download them and really take what you've talked about and convert it into something actionable, even if it's just one or two things. Because as I've said before, from my chair, it's be ready, right? Change is upon us. And how do we observe the change and not be afraid of it, but recognize that, there are ways to succeed in a changing environment. So thank you.
Yeah. It just means just getting started on something small today. So really enjoyed it, Diane. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Barry.